Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. I hope that you are all good. In today's video we're going to be doing a fruity acrylic set of nails. This particular design was done as part of a Charlie's Nail Art collaboration, so I will leave all of the information for that in the description box below in case you would like to come along and take part in the future collaborations. Jumping into today's video, this is a fairly simple video to be honest because all of the nails are the same in this particular set, but I wanted to include some fades, some glass tips, a little bit of glitter, and then of course those fruit pieces to create the theme. So I'm going to be using the WowBao Acrylic system today. This beautiful nude here is called Crown Sparkle, and it's a little bit difficult to tell at this point, but it's got a really pretty multicolored glitter running through it. It's a really fine glitter, so it just gives off a subtle sparkle. So like I said, I'm going to begin by just placing down my acrylic and fading it out. So I'm picking up a small bead to begin with, just tapping it up into place at the cuticle here, getting a nice neat cuticle line. And then to be honest, this particular bead of acrylic was a little bit too small just to bring the fade down and get the coverage that I wanted. So I just blended it out, and then I'm going to come in with another bead of acrylic just to build up that nail bed coverage a little bit more and just to make that fade come down ever so slightly more. So I'm blending it out nicely. I don't want there to be a harsh line where that nude acrylic ends. Even though we're going to be coming over the top with glitters and some Fimo fruit pieces, I wanted the fade to be quite nice and subtle just because the glitters I'm going to be using are iridescent, so you would still see some of the fade underneath, and if there was a too harsh line it just doesn't look as pretty. But this particular colour fades out really nicely. I find that any acrylics that have a sparkle or shimmer running through them, they fade out a lot easier. So if you are struggling doing any kind of fade or ombre, give it a go with a sparkly glitter shimmer acrylic because it's a lot easier. As you can see, I'm trying to be really careful when I'm working around that cuticle area. I'm trying to keep everything nice and neat and keeping it away from that cuticle and skin area. I do find it easy to have the hand tilted slightly downwards. Obviously, I'm working on a practice hand, but if you're working on a client, you can raise their hand up a little bit and then have their fingers pointing downwards. So when you are working in that cuticle area, it helps stop any of the product running back. Now that I've got all of my acrylic applied, I'm going to come in with my glitter, and I'm using this gorgeous mix from Charlie's Nail Art. This particular one is called Joyful, and as you can see, it's a green and pink iridescent glitter mix. It's a multi-cut mix as well, which is one of my favorite type of mixes, especially when doing anything like this, because you've already got those finer glitter pieces and those chunky glitter pieces all mixed into one, so it makes it a lot easier to apply, especially as well when you are wanting to do a set of nails and wanting to get them done quite quickly. Using a multi-cut mix is a lot easier than having to come in with a finer mix and then a chunkier glitter mix on the top. Now I'm picking up my raw glitter with a small wet bead of clear acrylic. So I pick up a teeny tiny wet bead of clear acrylic, dip directly into my raw glitters, and then when I place it down on the nail, I'm kind of patting and mixing that acrylic in with the glitter, and then I'm using my wet brush to nudge any of those pieces around. Then like here, if I want to add any more glitter on the top, rather than picking up any more acrylic, I just use my wet brush and dip that into the raw glitter because it's then going to stick to that clear acrylic that you used on the previous glitter bead. And I always like to keep my brush quite wet because it stops a lot of the glitter sticking to your brush and it makes it a lot easier to move around into place. Now I'm being really careful because I don't want to take this glitter all the way down to the tip of the nail because I wanted to keep those tips that clear glass effect. So I'm just bringing it down a little bit, sweeping it across so it does go down over some of the nude acrylic but then also comes up over some of the clear tip. And I really loved this mix. Once it was encapsulated and top coated, it looked absolutely beautiful, especially because with this particular set, I wasn't 100% sure what to do. The theme was fruit nails and I didn't really have anything nail art wise that was fruity apart from the Fimo pieces. And I wasn't 100% sure about just putting them on top of acrylic. I felt like I needed a little bit of background for them, and this glitter worked perfectly because where it's iridescent, it's not going to pop too much. It's still going to allow those Fimo pieces to get a bit of attention, if that makes sense. Now to place those down, I put a small bead of clear acrylic down, just a small wash of the acrylic. I didn't want to build up too much thickness because the Fimo pieces are quite thick themselves. And then what I'm doing is I'm just picking those Fimo pieces up using my wet brush and just placing them down into the wet acrylic. Now, further along, I do end up gluing these down a little bit as well, as some of the sides were sticking up. You could, this was my first time using Fimo, I think, or if not, I haven't used it in a very long time. But if I was to do this again, what I would do is bend the Fimo pieces a little bit. They are quite flat, so if you bent them around, say a nail art brush, they would curve and sit a lot better on the nail than what they did here. But you learn these things as you're going along. I was able to glue them down and it wasn't too bad. You have got to be really careful though when you're adding layers that are quite thick on, because then when it comes to encapsulating, you don't want to end up with too bulky now, or you don't want to end up filing into whatever you've popped down. And that's why I'm only working with small washes of clear acrylic, because I don't want to build up any unnecessary bulk. It's kind of just to hold these in place until we encapsulate. Again, I'm just using my wet brush to pick those up like I would with the glitter and nudge them around. And then once I'm happy with how they're all placed, I've allowed that clear acrylic to dry so that we can come in and encapsulate. So this first nail here, these encapsulated quite easy. It wasn't until I got to the second nail that I needed to glue them down. So I'm going to encapsulate the entire nail. So I'm picking up quite a wet bead of clear acrylic, especially at this tip area, because I want this to be as clear as possible. So by working a little bit where I haven't got to play around with the bead too much, it's just going to flow into place and I can kind of just guide it to where I need it to be. And then I'm just going to continue doing this, working my way up the nail. I worked in quite small beads just to make sure that I could get around all of those chunkier pieces and make sure that I get them fully encapsulated. And I found it a little bit easier to work in small beads to do this rather than coming in with larger beads. But of course, it's personal preference. Do it however you find it easiest. When I'm placing down that cuticle bead, I'm popping it up in the apex area, nudging it up towards the cuticle, and then I'm just leaving the bulk of it there because that's where we need most of our thickness to be. And then because I felt as though these little pieces weren't fully encapsulated, I did just come in with another bead just to make sure they were fully encapsulated. But as you can see there, the watermelon is still sticking up ever so slightly. And I did end up filing into it a little bit, but with these Fimo pieces you can't really notice if you do file into them, so it's not the end of the world when it comes to design purposes, but structure wise you ideally don't want that to happen. So that's why when it comes to working on the next nail, I decided to glue any of the edges down. So I'm just using my regular nail glue, popping a little bit down and then just sticking the edges down so that they hold in place. I'm only really sticking the edges down that stick up quite a lot, not all of them were, so it's just here and there, dabbing on a little bit of glue and then just holding them down. The nail glue dries in seconds, so it's worthwhile doing this extra step just to save yourself having to faff around or have problems further along when it comes to encapsulating. So I'm going to do exactly the same on this nail. I did only show you guys encapsulating the first two nails because I didn't want the video to be super repetitive. So I'm just coming in, working exactly the same as before, focusing on the very tip of the nail because just wanting to pay a little bit more attention there because that's where we want the tip of the nail to be as clear as possible. So that's why I just worked in a small wet bead on that zone and just sort of focused on each zone as I was going. This isn't necessarily how I would always encapsulate, it's just how I found it easiest for this particular set. Again, just working my way up the nail. As you can see, I'm working quite gentle with that acrylic. You don't want to place it down and pull too much off. So I'm working with nice, light, feathery strokes and leaving the bulk of the product where I place it down. You can see I'm tilting that finger down when I'm working in the cuticle zone, exactly the same as when I was working with my nude acrylic, because it's just going to stop it flowing back and flooding your cuticles. I'm trying to keep my sidewalls as neat and as nice as possible so that I don't have too much filing to do. And I didn't end up having too much filing to do when it comes to the shape of this particular set, but I did feel as though they were a little bit bulky, so I spent a while filing there. Now, this is what the nails looked like once I had fully encapsulated them. So you know that your acrylic has set when it starts going matte. And I quite liked how that glitter looked matte. If you watch my videos, you guys know I love a matte glitter. Anyway, off camera, I then did all of the filing, the buffing, made sure to clean away all of the dust. And we're now going to come in and top coat. So I'm top coating today using the WowBao Diamond Shine top coat. I'm really loving this top coat, to be honest. It does have a slightly thinner consistency compared to a lot of other top coats I use, but it has an amazing high shine to it. So it works perfectly for these kind of glass sets especially. Now on the first two nails, I'm just going to top coat the top of the nails as I felt as though they looked really, really clear as they were. But on the second two nails, I had got a little bit of acrylic underneath the nail, just where my encapsulation layer wasn't as neat as it could have been, or it wasn't as neat as it was on the first two nails. So I do come in on those two nails and top coat underneath. Now, ideally, if I was doing a set like this on a client, I probably would top coat underneath on all of the nails, just because wear and tear, I feel as though if a client was wearing these, having that layer of top coat underneath would help keep them a lot clearer throughout the duration of their set. But once I have finished applying that top coat, I'm going to pop these in to cure for 60 seconds. And that, guys, is the end of the video. So I really hope you all enjoyed watching. I hope you're all doing good. Let me know how you all are in the comments below. If you're watching and you aren't already subscribed to my channel, I would absolutely love it if you hit that subscription button. Thank you all so much for watching. Lots of love. Take care and bye-bye.